My name is Rebecca. I'm 35, and being a single mom to my beautiful 8-year-old Emma is the greatest joy of my life. My younger sister Melissa and I have always had a complicated relationship, but I never imagined she would betray my trust during my most vulnerable moment. Emma's gorgeous curly hair took years to grow out, and she was so proud of it. When severe stomach pain sent me to the emergency room for an appendectomy, I had no choice but to call Melissa. Before I tell you how my own family betrayed me during my most vulnerable moment, let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more stories about family betrayal and healing. Life as a single mother hasn't been easy since my divorce 3 years ago, but Emma and I have created our own little world together, one filled with love, respect, and understanding. My daughter has always been proud of her mixed heritage, with her father being African American and me Caucasian, giving her the most beautiful natural curls that cascade down her back like a waterfall of golden brown springs. Her hair has always been special to her, a symbol of her identity and something she took immense pride in caring for. We'd spend Sunday evenings together with our special hair ritual, carefully washing, conditioning, and gently detangling her curls while sharing stories about our week. Emma would beam with joy whenever someone complimented her hair, which happened frequently, and she'd spent the last 2 years growing it out for her upcoming dance recital, where she'd been cast as a lead. My sister Melissa, however, has always had a strange fixation on Emma's hair, making comments that seemed innocent on the surface but carried an undercurrent of jealousy. When Emma was 5, Melissa had tried to trim her hair during a babysitting session, cutting uneven chunks that took months to grow back properly. She'd brushed it off as just trying to help, but the look of satisfaction in her eyes told a different story. Then there was the time she bought Emma a straightening iron for her 7th birthday, telling her she'd look more normal with straight hair, a comment that had Emma questioning her natural beauty for weeks afterward. Melissa and I have a complicated history that stretches back to our childhood, where she was clearly our parents' favorite despite her sometimes manipulative behavior. 3 years younger than me, she learned early that tears and tantrums would get her what she wanted, while I was expected to be the responsible, understanding older sister. Our parents, Thomas and Linda Wilson, have consistently taken Melissa's side in any disagreement between us, dismissing my concerns as overreactions or jealousy. This pattern continued into adulthood, with Melissa's boundary issues becoming more problematic rather than improving with age. She'd borrow my clothes without asking, date men I'd expressed interest in, and once even applied for the same promotion at my workplace, despite having no experience in that department. Yet recently, I'd been making efforts to improve our relationship, partly because Emma adored her aunt despite everything, and partly because I believed people could change. We'd been having monthly family dinners, and Melissa had seemed genuinely interested in becoming a better aunt to Emma, bringing thoughtful gifts and actually listening to her stories about school and dance. Emma had been particularly excited about the upcoming weeks, with school photos scheduled and her dance recital just around the corner. She'd been practicing her routine obsessively in front of our living room mirror, her curls bouncing with each pirouette. "Mom, do you think I could wear my hair down for the recital? Ms. Jacobs usually makes us wear buns, but I want everyone to see my curls when I dance," she'd asked me the night before everything changed. I'd promised to speak with her dance teacher about making an exception, given how important it was to her. That same night, I'd felt the first twinge of pain in my lower abdomen, dismissing it as nothing serious. By morning, however, the pain had intensified to the point where I could barely stand upright. Emma found me doubled over in the kitchen, trying to make her breakfast before school. "Mom, what's wrong? Should I call someone?" Her voice trembled, with fear as she watched me struggle to breathe through the pain. I managed to call my neighbor, Mrs. Reynolds, who drove us to the emergency room while Emma sat in the back seat, clutching her backpack against her chest, her eyes wide with worry. At the hospital, things moved quickly, with doctors ordering tests and confirming what I'd begun to suspect. appendicitis, requiring immediate surgery. The surgeon explained that my appendix was dangerously close to rupturing, and they needed to operate within the hour. Panic set in as I realized Emma couldn't stay at the hospital alone, and Mrs. Reynolds had to leave for work. I called Emma's father, but he was out of town on business. My closest friend was on vacation, and my parents were on a cruise in Alaska with limited communication. With growing desperation, I scrolled through my contacts and landed on Melissa's name, my finger hovering over the call button as I weighed my options, which were quickly dwindling to none. The pain had become almost unbearable by the time I finally pressed Melissa's number, clutching the phone with white knuckles as waves of nausea rolled over me. The emergency room bustled around us, nurses checking my vitals while Emma sat silently, in the corner chair, her backpack still hugged tightly to her chest, those beautiful curls framing her worried face. When Melissa answered, I could barely speak through the pain, explaining between gasps that I needed emergency surgery and had no one to watch Emma. To my surprise, she responded immediately with concern. Of course I'll take her, Becca. Don't worry about anything. I can leave work right now and be there in 20 minutes. The relief I felt was immense, though tinged with that familiar unease that always accompanied trusting Melissa with something important. But what choice did I have? The doctor had returned with consent forms, explaining that my appendix was showing signs of potential rupture, which could lead to life-threatening peritonitis if not removed immediately. We need to get you into surgery within the next 30 minutes, he said firmly, his expression leaving no room for debate. Emma's eyes filled with tears when I explained what was happening, that she would need to go with Aunt Melissa for a little while until I was better. But what about your surgery? Will you be okay? Can I stay here and wait? She asked, her voice small and frightened. I pulled her close despite the pain, inhaling the sweet coconut scent of her hair conditioner. I'll be fine, sweetheart. The doctors will take good care of me, and you'll be back to visit as soon as I'm out of surgery. By the time Melissa arrived, nurses were already preparing to take me to pre-op. She breezed into the emergency room looking perfectly put together as always, designer sunglasses perched atop her sleek blonde bob, the complete opposite of my disheveled, pain-racked state. Emma clung to my hand until the last possible moment, reluctantly moving to Melissa's side only when a nurse insisted they needed to move me. As they began to wheel me away, I called out specific instructions to Melissa about Emma's care, her homework routine, food allergies, bedtime, and most importantly, her special hair care needs. Her hair routine is in the bathroom cabinet, labeled for her curly hair. Please don't use regular shampoo on it, and only use the wide-tooth comb when it's wet with conditioner. She can't sleep with it wet, it needs to be dried properly, or it will tangle badly. Melissa waved dismissively. Relax, sis, it's just hair, we'll be fine. Something in her tone made my stomach clench with more than appendicitis pain, but the gurney was already moving through the swinging doors. The last thing I saw was Emma's frightened face and her hand raised in a small wave. In the pre-op room, nurses bustled around checking equipment and inserting IVs while I tried to focus on breathing through the pain rather than worrying about Emma. The anesthesiologist explained the procedure as he prepared the medications that would soon render me unconscious. You'll start feeling drowsy right away, and when you wake up, the surgery will be over. As the drugs entered my system, creating a warm, heavy sensation throughout my body, my last conscious thoughts were of Emma, hoping she would be okay, hoping Melissa would be responsible just this once. The anesthesia pulled me under into strange, fragmented dreams, where I was searching for Emma in a forest of tangled hair that kept wrapping around my legs, tripping me as I called her name. I dreamed of scissors snipping all around me, the sound, following me through corridors of a house that looked like my childhood home, but with doors that led nowhere. When I finally began to emerge from anesthesia, I was confused to learn that what should have been a routine hour-long procedure had extended to nearly 4 hours due to complications. My appendix had partially ruptured during surgery, requiring extensive cleaning of the abdominal cavity and a longer incision than initially planned. The recovery nurse explained that I'd been given stronger antibiotics and would need to stay in the hospital for at least 3 days to monitor for infection, significantly longer than the overnight stay we'd originally discussed. Groggy and disoriented from the anesthesia and pain medication, I asked about Emma, and the nurse smiled kindly. "Your family is waiting to see you. We'll bring them in once you're settled in your room and more awake." The room was spinning slightly when I finally opened my eyes fully, the harsh fluorescent lights making me squint as I tried to orient myself. A different nurse was checking my IV, her movements efficient but gentle. "Your family's been waiting for hours," she mentioned with a smile. "Your little girl is so excited to see you. I'll let them know you're awake now." I tried to sit up, wincing at the sharp pain in my abdomen as the nurse helped adjust my bed to a slightly elevated position. Minutes later, I heard the door open and turned with a weak smile, expecting to see Emma's familiar bouncing curls. Instead, I saw my daughter standing in the doorway, her small hand clutching a baseball cap pulled low over her head, her entire posture withdrawn in a way I'd never seen before. "Emma?" I called, my voice hoarse from the breathing tube they'd used during surgery. She approached slowly, eyes downcast, and it was only when she reached the bedside that she reluctantly removed the cap at my gentle insistence. The shock that hit me was more painful than any surgical incision could ever be. My beautiful daughter's head was completely shaved, her glorious curls gone, leaving nothing but a patchy, unevenly cut stubble across her scalp. Emma's eyes welled with tears as she saw my expression. "Aunt Melissa said I'd look better with short hair," she whispered, her voice catching. "She said my hair was too big and wild, and that everyone would like me better this way." Before I could respond, Melissa sauntered into the room, scrolling through her phone as if nothing was amiss. When she noticed my horrified stare, she simply shrugged and said those unbelievable words. "She looked better this way, too much hair?" Her casual tone, as if she were commenting on a slightly altered hairstyle rather than the complete destruction of my daughter's beloved curls, made my blood boil despite the medications dulling my senses. Emma's small hand found mine, squeezing tightly as tears silently tracked down her cheeks. "I told her no, Mom," she whispered. "I said no over and over, but she and Grandma held me down." That revelation hit me like a physical blow. "Mom is here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible as the implications sank in. Melissa nodded, still scrolling through her phone. I called them after I realized what a big deal Emma was making about it. They drove back from the airport right away. Emma's shoulders hunched further, her free hand constantly moving to pull the cap back over her exposed scalp. "Grandma said I was being vain and that vanity is a sin," she mumbled. The physical pain of my surgery was nothing compared to the rage and heartbreak building inside me as I watched my daughter try to hide herself from view. I pressed the nurse call button repeatedly, unable to trust myself to speak without screaming at Melissa. When a concerned nurse appeared, I managed to ask for privacy with just my daughter for a moment, but Melissa interjected. "We're family. There's no need for privacy. Besides, Mom and Dad just went to get coffee. They'll be right back." The confrontation I'd been trying to avoid erupted then, as I demanded through clenched teeth to know exactly what had happened. Melissa finally looked up from her phone, rolling her eyes dramatically. "You're overreacting as usual, Becca. Her hair was out of control, and she was complaining about tangles. I was just trying to help." Emma's grip on my hand tightened as she whispered, "That's not true, Mom. She waited until I was in the bath and came in with scissors. When I screamed and tried to run away, she called Grandma and Grandpa. Grandma held me while Aunt Melissa cut it all off." The nurse, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, hovered by the door as voices in the hallway announced my parents' arrival. They entered the room with coffee cups in hand, my mother immediately launching into criticism. "Rebecca," the nurse, "says your blood pressure is elevated. You need to calm down. All this fuss over a haircut isn't good for your recovery. My father stood silently behind her, his expression disapproving as he added, "Your sister was trying to help. Emma was throwing a tantrum about brushing her hair, and sometimes children need to learn lessons about vanity and obedience." I stared at them in disbelief, these people who were supposed to love and protect my child, who had instead violated her bodily autonomy in the most visible and traumatic way possible. Emma had retreated into herself, hiding behind me as much as possible in my hospital bed, her small body trembling. The nurse, sensing the tension, suggested that perhaps some family members could wait in the visitor lounge to give me time to rest, but my mother brushed her off. "We're discussing a family matter. Her hair will grow back, and frankly, it's easier to manage this way. Emma needs to stop being so dramatic about it." The tension in the hospital room became unbearable as my parents flanked Melissa like bodyguards, creating a united front against me and my devastated daughter. Despite the surgical pain radiating through my abdomen, I pushed myself into a more upright position, determined to protect Emma from their dismissive cruelty. "How dare you?" I hissed, my voice low but intense. "How dare any of you touch my daughter without permission, especially after explicitly being told how important her hair is to her?" My mother scoffed, crossing her arms over her designer blouse. "You've always babied her too much, Rebecca. It's just hair, and frankly, all those curls were becoming unmanageable. Melissa, did you both a favor?" Emma had slipped away from my side during this exchange, retreating to the small bathroom attached to my hospital room, the click of the lock echoing in the momentary silence that followed my mother's callous statement. The sound of my daughter's muffled sobbing through the bathroom door broke something inside me. Memories flooded back in vivid detail. Melissa cutting the hair off my dolls when we were children, and my parents dismissing it as just playing. My mother forcing me to cut my own hair short in middle school because she was tired of helping me care for it. My father's constant comments about women's appearance being their only valuable asset. The generational pattern suddenly became crystal clear, and I realized this moment would define not only my relationship with my family, but Emma's understanding of her own worth and bodily autonomy. "This isn't about hair," I said, my voice gaining strength despite my physical weakness. "This is about respect, consent, and trust. You held down my child and forcibly cut off a part of her body while she begged you to stop. In what world is that acceptable?" My father stepped forward, his imposing figure looming over my hospital bed. "Now listen here, young lady. Your sister took time off work to help you in an emergency, and this is how you thank her? With accusations and dramatics? Emma needs to learn respect for her elders and gratitude for their help." His words, so similar to those I'd heard throughout my childhood whenever I dared stand up for myself, might have cowed me in the past, but with Emma sobbing behind that bathroom door, something fundamental shifted within me. "No, Dad, you listen. Emma is my daughter, not yours, not Mom's, and certainly not Melissa's. She's a person with her own feelings and bodily autonomy, not a doll for you all to modify as you see fit." Melissa, who had been relatively quiet during this exchange, suddenly laughed, a sound so inappropriate and cruel in the context that even the nurse checking my monitors looked shocked. "Bodily autonomy? She's 8, Rebecca. Children don't get to make their own decisions." The casual dismissal of my daughter's humanity pushed me past my breaking point. "Get out," I said, my voice deadly calm despite the monitors showing my elevated heart rate. "All of you, get out now, or I'll have security remove you." My mother's face contorted with familiar righteous indignation. "After all we've done, rushing back from the airport, helping your sister care for your child while you're incapacitated, this is the thanks we get? Your father and I raised you better than this ingratitude." Her voice had risen to the point where a doctor passing in the hallway paused, then entered the room with a concerned expression. "Is everything all right in here? Mrs. Taylor, your vitals are showing significant stress, which isn't conducive to recovery after an appendectomy with complications." I seized the opportunity his presence provided. "No, everything is not all right. My family violated my daughter's bodily autonomy while I was unconscious, and now they're refusing to leave when asked. The doctor glanced around the room, noting Emma's absence and the hostile postures of my family members. His voice became professionally firm as he addressed my parents and sister. I'm going to have to ask you to step out. The patient needs rest, and this level of stress could potentially complicate her recovery. My father started to protest, but the doctor was already gesturing to a security guard who had appeared in the doorway, summoned by the concerned nurse. As they reluctantly gathered their belongings, Melissa leaned close to my bed. Her voice a venomous whisper meant only for me. You always were the difficult one, Becca. Always making mountains out of molehills. No wonder Mark left you. They saw mention of my ex-husband, who had cheated on me with his 23-year-old assistant before abandoning me with a 5-year-old daughter and mountain of debt, was the final twist of the knife. As the door closed behind them, I called softly. To Emma, who emerged from the bathroom with red, swollen eyes and that heartbreaking, stubbled head. As she climbed carefully onto the bed beside me, mindful of my incision, the doctor checked my vitals once more. I've instructed the nursing staff that only your daughter is to be allowed in until further notice, he said quietly. If you'd at Sabitsaki like to file a formal complaint about what happened, the hospital patient advocate can assist you. Through my grateful tears, I could only nod as Emma curled against my side, her small body still shaking with suppressed sobs. That night, as Emma slept fitfully in the recliner beside my hospital bed, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision that would change everything. The cycle of abuse, disrespect, and boundary violations that had defined my family for generations would end with me. No matter the cost, I would ensure that Emma grew up knowing her voice mattered, her body was her own, and that love should never come with the price tag of submission. The week following my surgery was a blur of physical pain mingled with emotional devastation, as Emma and I retreated to our apartment, screening calls and focusing solely on recovery, both hers and mine. My incision throbbed constantly, a physical reminder of my vulnerability during the betrayal, while Emma's psychological wounds manifested in ways that broke my heart daily. The first morning I found her sleeping in her closet, wrapped in a hoodie with the hood pulled tight despite the warm spring temperatures, I knew the damage went far deeper than I'd initially realized. I don't want to go to school, she whispered. When I gently woke her, her eyes filled with a fear I'd never seen before. Everyone will laugh at me. Despite my reassurances and offers to buy cute hats and scarves, Emma remained adamant, and given everything she'd been through, I couldn't bring myself to force the issue. Instead, I arranged for her assignments to be sent home temporarily while I recovered enough to properly address the situation. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my parents and sister, ranging from defensive justifications to angry accusations that I was poisoning Emma against them by overreacting to a simple haircut. Each message confirmed that they remained completely blind to the harm they'd caused, seeing Emma's bodily autonomy as subordinate to their authority and convenience. On the 4th day of our self-imposed isolation, Emma finally agreed to venture out for a necessary grocery run, hidden beneath a hooded sweatshirt despite the unusually warm April weather. At the store, we encountered Mrs. Peterson, Emma's 3rd-grade teacher, whose shocked expression upon glimpsing Emma's shaved head was quickly masked with kindness. "What a brave new look, Emma," she exclaimed, clearly trying to be supportive, while shooting me questioning glances. Emma's response was a mumbled, "It wasn't my choice," before she retreated behind me, effectively ending the conversation as Mrs. Peterson's expression shifted from confusion to concern. The real test came the following Monday, when Emma could no longer delay her return to school without formal medical documentation. I spent the weekend helping her select colorful scarves and soft hats that might ease the transition, but nothing could prepare either of us for the cruelty of some of her classmates. That afternoon, I waited in the school pickup line, heart pounding with anxiety. only to have Emma climb into the car with tears streaming down her face, her beautiful hand-tied scarf missing, and a cruel note pinned to her backpack reading, "Baldy." The school principal called that evening, apologetic and concerned about the bullying incident. But her words provided little comfort as I held my sobbing daughter, who begged between hiccuping breaths. Why did Aunt Melissa hate my hair so much? Was there something wrong with it? With me? Each question pierced my heart like a physical wound, and my guilt for trusting Melissa, for not having anyone else to call in that emergency, threatened to overwhelm me. Meanwhile, my family's harassment escalated with daily calls, demanding access to Emma and minimizing her trauma. "She needs to toughen up," my father insisted during one particularly heated call. "The world won't coddle her like you do." The final straw came when I discovered, through a concerned dance parent's text, that Melissa had taken photos of Emma's shaved head while she slept and shared them on social media with a caption about finally taming the wild child's mane. The photos showed my daughter unconscious, vulnerable, with half her hair already shorn, tears still drying on her cheeks, while Melissa grinned triumphantly beside her with scissors in hand. The visceral rage I felt upon seeing those images was like nothing I'd experienced before, not even during my divorce when I'd discovered my ex-husband's infidelity. This was a different category of betrayal, one targeting not me but my innocent child. Amidst this storm, unexpected support arrived from Emma's dance teacher, Ms. Jacobs, who called after Emma missed 2 weeks of classes. Rather than the judgment I'd braced for, she offered compassion and practical help. "Bring her in during off hours," she suggested warmly. "I'd like to work with her one-on-one, and I have some ideas for her recital that might help." That night, I found Emma sitting on her bed, holding the costume for her upcoming recital, silent tears falling onto the sparkly fabric. "I can't dance anymore," she whispered. "Not like this. Everyone will stare at me." In that moment, watching, my once confident daughter crumple under the weight of shame she should never have had to bear, something crystallized within me. This wasn't just about hair or even about one traumatic incident. This was about teaching Emma that she deserved respect, that her voice mattered, and that some violations couldn't simply be forgiven with hollow apologies. The next morning, I made 2 important calls. First to a child psychologist specializing in trauma, and second to a family law attorney. The psychologist, Dr. Martinez, created immediate space in her schedule after hearing our situation, explaining gently that what Emma had experienced was a significant violation of her bodily autonomy during an already frightening time when her mother was hospitalized. Children often process physical violations differently than adults, she explained. For Emma, having her hair forcibly cut while being physically restrained by family members she trusted could create lasting trauma around issues of control, trust, and self-image. During their first session, Emma revealed details that made my blood run cold. How Melissa had waited until she was vulnerable in the bath, how she'd laughed while cutting off the first chunks of hair, how my mother had told her to stop being so vain when she cried and struggled. "They said you wouldn't care," Emma confessed, her voice small. "They said you'd be happy it was gone because it was too much work for you." Those words confirmed what I'd long suspected, but had never wanted to believe. My family's actions weren't motivated by convenience or misguided helpfulness, but by deliberate cruelty and the same jealous resentment Melissa had always harbored, toward me, now transferred to my daughter. As I held my heartbroken child, I made a silent vow that would guide my actions in the difficult days ahead. Never again would I allow anyone, regardless of blood ties, to make Emma feel unsafe, unheard, or unloved, even if that meant rebuilding our family from the ground up. The attorney's office was sleek and modern, walls adorned with framed diplomas and family photographs, a stark contrast to the chaos Emma and I had been living in for the past 2 weeks. Judith Winters, a formidable woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and keen eyes that missed nothing, listened without interruption as I recounted everything, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound portfolio. When I finished, sliding my phone across her desk with the social media photos Melissa had posted, her expression hardened visibly. "What happened to your daughter constitutes assault under state law," she stated matter-of-factly, returning my phone. "Unauthorized cutting of a child's hair against their will, especially while being physically restrained, is not a family matter or a haircut gone wrong. It's a violation with legal ramifications." She outlined our options methodically: a formal cease and desist letter demanding all photos be removed immediately, a potential restraining order if harassment continued, and documentation of the incident with family services to establish a pattern of behavior should future issues arise. "Many people don't realize that children have legal rights to bodily autonomy," she explained. "The fact that these were family members doesn't diminish the violation. In many ways, it compounds it because of the breach of trust." At home, Emma was slowly beginning her healing journey with Dr. Martinez's help, learning vocabulary to express her feelings and techniques to manage anxiety when classmates stared or asked invasive questions. Our shopping trip for head coverings became an unexpected source of empowerment when Emma chose bold, colorful scarves rather than hats designed to hide, explaining with newfound conviction, "I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I just want to make it mine now." The transformation wasn't overnight or linear, with difficult days interspersed among better ones, but each small step forward filled me with fierce pride. The school meeting with Principal Davis was another turning point. Her immediate response to the bullying situation setting a tone that reverberated through Emma's classroom. "This is an opportunity to teach empathy and respect," she said firmly, implementing an age-appropriate discussion about bodily autonomy and consent school-wide. When Emma tentatively returned to dance class for a private session with Ms. Jacobs, I waited anxiously in the car, prepared for another setback. Instead, she emerged with the first genuine smile I'd seen in weeks. "Ms. Jacobs says I can wear a special headpiece for the recital," she announced, buckling her seatbelt. "She says sometimes the bravest dancers are the ones who overcome the biggest challenges." Meanwhile, the cease and desist letter drafted by Judith Winters had the desired effect on social media, with Melissa immediately removing the offensive photos and temporarily deactivating her accounts. My parents' reaction, however, was predictably defensive, a barrage of voicemails alternating between guilt trips and threats. "You'll regret involving lawyers in a family matter," my father warned ominously. "Your sister was only trying to help, and you're blowing this completely out of proportion." Their stubborn refusal to acknowledge the harm done reinforced my conviction that distance was necessary, at least until they demonstrated genuine understanding and remorse. The unexpected catalyst for change came from an unlikely source. Own social media post detailing Emma's experience without naming family members, focused instead on children's right to bodily autonomy and the importance of consent. Originally intended as therapeutic expression, the post resonated far beyond my small circle of friends, shared thousands of times and generating hundreds of comments from parents with similar experiences. Strangers sent messages of support for Emma, sharing stories of their own childhood violations and their journey toward healing. "You're teaching your daughter that her boundaries matter," wrote one grandmother. "I wish someone had done the same for me at her age." As the post gained traction, more local parents reached out directly, including Zoe's mother from Emma's class, who revealed that her daughter had been similarly bullied for her vitiligo. Their subsequent playdate forged a friendship based on mutual understanding of feeling different, with Zoe matter-of-factly telling Emma, "People stared at me too, but now they're just boring to me." Melissa's attempts to counter the narrative backfired spectacularly when she posted a defensive rant that inadvertently confirmed the key elements of my account, prompting several mutual acquaintances to privately express their shock and support. For Emma, The unexpected community validation seemed to penetrate my parents' defensive shield in ways my individual protests couldn't, culminating in my mother's tearful phone call after her bridge partner confronted her about her role in the incident. "I never thought of it as assault," she admitted, her voice uncharacteristically small. "We just thought it would be easier for everyone if her hair was shorter." The acknowledgement, while far from a complete understanding, represented the first crack in their unified denial. My father followed with a stiffly worded email that nonetheless contained the words, "Perhaps we overstepped," a monumental concession from a man who'd never admitted error in his life. These tentative admissions didn't immediately repair the damage, but they opened a doorway to potentially meaningful dialogue about boundaries and respect that had previously seemed impossible. Throughout this tumultuous period, Emma's resilience continually amazed me. From the day she decisively removed all remaining hair stubble, declaring, "If it's going to be short, I want it to be on purpose," to her presentation at the school's personal safety assembly where she bravely shared, "Nobody has the right to touch your body without permission, even if they're family." Each small victory reinforced our new family mantra, created during a therapy session and now prominently displayed on our refrigerator. Our bodies, our choices, our voices matter. The most significant breakthrough came 6 weeks after the incident, when Emma decided to participate in her dance recital after all. Standing in the wings, wrapped in her costume with a stunning beaded headpiece created by Ms. Jacobs to complement her now quarter-inch of regrowth, she trembled with nerves but refused to back down. "I'm still me, Mom," she whispered before taking her position on stage. "My hair didn't make me who I am." Watching her dance with newfound determination, expressing through movement what words couldn't fully capture, I realized that while the journey ahead remained long, the foundation we were building was unshakable. A future where Emma would never doubt her worth or her right to define her own boundaries, regardless of who challenged them. 6 months after that fateful hospital awakening, Emma stands before the bathroom mirror, running her fingers through the 2 inches of glossy curls now covering her head. "It grows about half an inch each month," she explains to her best friend, Zoe, who's sleeping over for the first time since everything happened. "By next summer, it'll be past my ears." The physical transformation is striking, but the emotional growth is even more remarkable, visible in the confident set of her shoulders, and the clear boundaries she now articulates without hesitation. Our journey to this place of healing hasn't been straightforward or easy, with each step forward sometimes followed by unexpected challenges. The first supervised visit with my parents, conducted in Dr. Martinez's office 3 months after the incident, was tense and tearful, but ultimately productive. My mother, having completed several sessions with her own therapist at Dr. Martinez's recommendation, struggled to maintain eye contact with Emma, but managed to deliver a genuine apology. "I was wrong to hold you down, and wrong to dismiss your feelings," she said, her voice catching. "I grew up being told children shouldn't have opinions about their bodies, but that doesn't make it right." My father found accountability more difficult, his apology laced with qualifiers until Emma directly asked, "Would you like it if someone held you down and shaved your head when you said no?" His startled expression, followed by genuine reflection, marked a turning point in his understanding. Melissa's path to accountability has been longer and more complex, beginning with reflexive defensiveness before transitioning to reluctant therapy sessions and eventually, after 3 months of no contact, a handwritten letter to Emma that acknowledged the violation without excuses. "I was jealous of your beautiful hair and the special relationship you have with your mom," she confessed in surprisingly honest terms. "Instead of dealing with my feelings like a responsible adult, I took them out on you, which was cruel and wrong." Emma read the letter multiple times, her expression thoughtful before carefully placing it in her keepsake box rather than throwing it away, explaining, "I'm not ready to forgive her yet, but maybe someday I will be." Our new family boundaries, Remain firm. Limited, supervised contact only, with immediate consequences for any disrespect of Emma's autonomy, however small. These boundaries, initially met with resistance, have gradually fostered healthier interactions during our monthly family dinners, which now include open discussions about consent and respect that would have been unimaginable before. The healing extends beyond our immediate family circle, with Emma's experience catalyzing important conversations throughout our community. When another student in Emma's class began losing hair to alopecia, Emma's response was immediate and compassionate, organizing a headscarf drive and creating a presentation about different cultural and personal meanings of hair. "Sometimes people stare because they don't understand," she explained to her classmate with wisdom beyond her years. "But that's about them, not about you." The dance studio implemented a formal policy about respecting children's bodily autonomy, inspired partly by Emma's experience, while her school incorporated age-appropriate consent education into their regular curriculum. These systemic changes promise protection for other children that Emma didn't have, a legacy she takes quiet pride in whenever another parent thanks her for her courage. Our own mother-daughter relationship has deepened through this shared adversity. Our Sunday self-care rituals now expanded to include not just hair care, but meaningful conversations about the week's challenges and victories. "I'm glad we don't keep secrets anymore," Emma commented recently as I carefully detangled her growing curls. "Even the hard stuff is better when we talk about it." This new openness extends to discussions about her father, who initially reacted to the incident with rage directed at my family, but has since worked with Emma's therapist to better support her healing process during his monthly visits. The most profound transformation, perhaps, has been in Emma's self-perception and advocacy. The child who once hid in closets and begged to stay home from school now confidently educates peers and adults alike about consent, recently correcting a well-meaning but boundary-crossing relative with poised assertiveness. "My body belongs to me," she stated simply when an aunt attempted to force unwanted hugs. "You can ask for permission, but you need to respect my answer." While the path hasn't been without setbacks, including the recent discovery of an old photo Melissa had missed when purging her social media, Emma's resilience in the face of such challenges continues to inspire me. "It doesn't hurt as much to look at it now," she observed, studying her partially shaved head in the image. "It reminds me how strong I am, not just how sad I was." As for my relationship with my sister and parents, we're writing a new chapter, based on hard-earned wisdom rather than obligatory family ties. "Real family protects you and respects you," Emma declared during a recent therapy session. "And sometimes you have to teach people how to be real family, or find new people who already know how." Those words capture the essence of what we've learned: that family is defined not by blood, but by behavior, that love without respect is simply control disguised as affection, and that standing firm in your truth, even when costly, ultimately creates space for authentic connection. Emma's curls are growing back differently now, with new patterns and textures emerging, a physical manifestation of our transformed reality. As she reaches for her favorite headscarf, no longer a hiding place but a form of creative expression, she catches my eye in the mirror and smiles, a smile that reaches all the way to her eyes for the first time in months. "Mom," she says thoughtfully, "do you think other kids and parents need to hear our story? Maybe it would help them too." Her question brings us full circle, from victims of violation to advocates for change, and I realize that the price my family paid for their actions wasn't just our temporary estrangement, but the permanent transformation of a power dynamic that had persisted for generations. Tonight, as I watch Emma and Zoe giggling over music videos and practicing dance moves, I'm struck by the realization that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for family is set boundaries that create capacity for growth, even when that growth is painful. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members who violated your trust? How did you balance forgiveness with necessary change? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video if Emma's journey resonated with you. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage. Thank you for listening, and remember, teaching our children that their boundaries matter isn't just good parenting. It's creating a more respectful world for everyone.